Chemistry chapter 24, theory video 9, the color complexes. Now you must understand that if you see now if there is a red t-shirt, that means if it is red, that means you you are looking at the color that is coming from the t-shirt. That means all the colors except for red have been absorbed by that t-shirt. Only thing that is reflected would be red. So if you look at a black hole, what happens is all of the light is absorbed. As a result, you don't see any light. So when you look at a white wall, that means all of the light is reflected. As a result, you see it as white. So all the colors of the visible spectrum would be reflected. So then if a solution of a certain transition element, if it has a complex, if that complex has a color, that means the color that is shown, except for that, all the other colors would be absorbed by that. So then the color that we see is called the complementary color. So that is made up of light with frequencies not absorbed. Now when you take copper 2 ions, they absorb light from red end of the spectrum. The color that we see is pale blue, called cyan. So these are the complementary list of the list of complementary pairs of colors. Red and cyan. That is, if red is absorbed, cyan would be seen. If cyan is absorbed, red would be seen. Yellow, blue, green, magenta. But you must understand that if you mix different colors of paint, you can mix them, but it does not actually give the same complementary colors as light. Mixing light of different frequencies does not give the same color as mixing colors of paint. But to understand why some part of the spectrum is absorbed by transition metal ions, we have to look at their d orbitals in the ions. So now the 5 d orbitals in an isolated transition metal atom or an ion is called as degenerate orbitals. So that means they are in the same energy level. So that is something that you must take into mind. Then when there is a ligand, transition metal is not going to be isolated. There would be day-2 coordinate bonding. Then the 5 d orbitals in the transition metal ion, they split into 2 sets. They will be now known as non-degenerate orbitals because they are slightly different in energy levels. So these are the 5 stages. Now when these ligands get arranged in an octahedral shape, the lone pairs would be given by the ligands, and they will repel the 2 dx2y2, this one, it will be repelled when it is octahedral. So these repulsions, there are many different repulsions that occur here. You don't actually have to know this in detail because I have never seen this part being questioned, but still that doesn't mean that it is not going to come. It can come. So the repulsions increase because when these electrons are donated, these electrons by the ligands, they will be arranged in this manner. As a result, they are going to be a separation between the original formation and as a result, you are going to have an excitement in these electrons. Then that means, so the orbitals x2, y2 and z2 orbitals are going to be closer to the bonding electrons. So that increases the bonding, that increases the repulsion, and d orbitals split. And these two orbitals, these two d orbitals would have a higher amount of energy than dyz, dxz and dxy orbitals. I hope that makes sense. This is going to be the explanation for that. If you study this diagram properly, you will understand what happens there. So initially you have degenerate 3D orbitals, then they will split into dx, split in this manner, and finally you have excited electrons that absorbs the delta E difference to provide that imbalance of energies. Now, when you take a copper ion, Cu2 plus ion, it has 3d9 configuration with argon. This shows the 9d electrons would be distributed between the non-degenerate orbitals, forming a complex with ligands. So the difference in energy we refer to in the diagram as delta E. That delta E is going to correspond to the visible spectrum of light. So what happens is, when light is shown upon this solution having this copper 2 ion complex, the electron would absorb that particular amount of energy and it jumps from the photons, light photons. Then it jumps into the higher of the two degenerate energy levels. So then the visible spectrum, the rest of the visible spectrum will pass through the solution and make it appear blue in color. I hope you understand that. So the exact energy difference between the two degenerate d orbitals is going to be affected by other factors. For example, the identity of the ligands that are going to surround the metal ion. Now, when you have copper surrounded by water molecules and ammonia molecules, the copper one is going to have a light blue color, whereas the ammonia complex is going to have a deep blue color. So this happens because ammonia ligands and the difference in energies make it to allows it to separate or split these d orbitals to split with varied amount of energy. So to jump up that the electrons to jump to the higher orbital, it would absorb more energy. That means a different color, color is absorbed. As a result, a different color is seen. Now, that is for octahedral complex. Now, when you come to a tetrahedral complex, such as COCl4, the splitting of the d orbitals is going to be a little different. So, the bonding pairs of electrons will form 4 ligands to line up with dyz, dxz and dxy orbitals. Then in the octahedral arrangement, the different octahedral arrangement, in tetrahedral complex, the dx 2y2 and dz squared, that is going to lie between the lone pairs. That is the metal ligand bond, that is the dative bond. It is going to lie there. So as a result, there would be a less repulsion between electrons. Therefore, the d orbitals are going to be, the energy difference is going to be lower. And at a more, and it is not very excited, as a result, more stable energy level than the other dxy, dyz, xz, and dxy orbitals. If it is if it is too complex, or if it is confusing for you, please let me know, then I will explain it further. Write down a note on this. The color of complexes. We see a solution to be a certain color the color. We observe the complementary color made up of light with frequencies not absorbed by that solution. For example, copper 2 ions absorb light from the red end of the spectrum. So the pale blue cyan, cyan, cyan is observed. I'm not really sure how it is pronounced, but cyan is a likely candidate. This happens when the degenerate orbitals in an isolated transition metal atom which are at the same energy level are split into two sets by the repulsions when ligands at their dative electrons into it. When light is shone upon this complex, energy would be absorbed by electrons to jump up to the higher energy level. As a result, that particular light is absorbed. I hope you understood. Please draw figure 24.17. After drawing that, write down. In tetrahedral complexes, the repulsions between the electrons and the electrons are lesser because lone pairs are arranged in a different way. As a result, the resulting delta E would be lesser. Please draw this as well. If you don't understand anything, or if you are confused, or if you have any doubts, please let me know, then I will explain it further. So that is the end of this chapter. Please do questions the end of chapters and all of the in chapter questions.